Well, thank you all for joining us. My name is Rebecca Curry, and I'm the Public Services Supervisor in ESU Special Collections and Archives, which is hosting our program. And we're very pleased to be joined by former Lady Hornet basketball coach and current Southern Illinois University women's basketball coach Cindy Stein, along with our Associate AD Don Wiest, for a discussion of her time at ESU and her experiences in taking the team to the NCAA tournament. So Cindy, Don, you have the floor.
All right. Well, thanks, Rebecca. Cindy, good to see you again.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me. It's Don, it's been a long time. I haven't seen you in a while, but you look fantastic.
Well, I don't know about that, but hey, we'll take it. I appreciate the compliment. So, hey, for some of our maybe viewers, listeners that don't know a little bit, can you just real quick kind of give a history of your coaching journey a little bit? How you got to Emporia State, what you've done since then?
Sure. I went right from playing at the University of Illinois right into coaching, and was fortunate enough to have my one of my assistant coaches at Illinois got the head coaching job at Central Michigan. And I just started, went to be a grad assistant for 2 years, and then just kind of went on a journey of being an assistant coach at Miami, Ohio, Cincinnati, Bradley University, and University of Illinois. And was at the University of Illinois as an assistant, was thinking about wanting to become a head coach. And Emporia State was open, and saw it. And I don't know, something about it just intrigued me. Felt like they had some really good pieces, especially, the things you look for is the community, the education, and the facilities. And, was lucky enough, obviously, for Bill Coyle to decide to hire me. And honestly, I tell people this all the time. Probably the best decision of my life was going to Emporia State, and it's still a very treasured place to me. I love it, and still know a lot of good people that are there, and it means a lot to me.
Yep. So what, you mentioned a little bit, but, was there one specific thing maybe that kind of drew you here, or was it just the opportunity to be a head coach? I mean, kind of what was the combination there?
Yeah, it was the opportunity to become a head coach was really intriguing to me. And, I wanted to do it somewhere where, I felt like there was some good recruiting spots around it. I think you got to look for that. Not being very far from Kansas City or Wichita, close to even Texas and Oklahoma, there's just some really good talent. So you got to be close to those recruiting pools. And again, I think it's in a beautiful part of Kansas. I think sometimes Kansas gets a bad rap for being flat, and dusty. Just really thought it was a beautiful spot, beautiful place. And I always tell everybody, people make the place. And when I came for my interview, there's so many people that cared about the program. And I think that's the other thing you look for is, you don't have people in place that care about it in key positions, from the president to the AD to your development director. I mean, those are things that you got to have.
Well, you talked a little bit about recruiting, and Emporia State had always had kind of, we've had success, before you got here, it'd been a little sporadic and whatnot, but then really since the time you were here, it's been kind of unparalleled success by the Lady Hornets. And I think a part of that comes to the way in your kind of recruiting philosophy. You had what I consider a really good mix of people here, high school kids from Kansas, the transfers that fit in well. Just kind of talk about maybe some of those kids in that first group of players that you had.
Yeah, we were really lucky that too, when we got to Emporia, is the fact that, I'm trying to say how to say this nicely, but Kansas and Kansas State weren't recruiting Kansas kids. Mm-hmm. Basically, I mean, it was, they ended up, especially Kansas State, doing that a little bit more with Deb Patterson, but they weren't really doing it that much. So we were actually, we knew that we wanted to hit Kansas area and watch as many kids as we could. And really recruit from that area. But we also knew that you had to have some impact players because freshmen tend to take a little bit longer, so that we knew the junior college, and it's in the hotbed of JUCO talent. I mean, it's some of the best junior college women's basketball programs in the country year in and year out. So we obviously hit that pretty hard, and we're successful, and got some really good kids.
That's kind of an understatement there, I think, to say we had a few good kids. You look at that group that went 33-1. You had the Koshaite twins who were on there. Annetta being the first Division II player to make it into the WNBA. You had Tara Holloway and Emily Bloss, who would eventually go on to be Division I or Division II Players of the Year. So a little bit more than just some good players there. That's just you and your recruiting style.
Well, and I think that too, you know, the things that you got to look for in recruiting, it's like any kind of business as well, is the fact that you got to find the kids that will work hard, those blue collar workers. I mean, people that don't care exactly how much they get paid. They have a passion for what they're doing, and they'll spend the extra time to get better. And so that's what we really look for. And obviously I was very fortunate to find Brandon Schneider. He was just getting done playing. And he, you know, what I saw in him was also someone that, you know, his family traditionally had been involved in women's basketball, his dad being a tremendous coach in the Texas area. So he grew up around it, and a very successful, nationally prominent program. So he had a love and a passion. You could tell that right away he had a passion for player development and helping make kids better, which is what we were going to have to do. So you can't do what we did without, you know, finding the kids that were willing to work hard, and then obviously having a great staff. And I was very fortunate to have a tremendous assistant in Brandon.
Let's talk a little bit about White Auditorium. You know, what was it like going in there, you know, your first year, kind of that first time you step into that building as a coach, and then kind of the transformation from that year to the last game that you coached there? Yeah.
White Auditorium I love that place. In fact, it's funny, I've obviously coached in a lot of auditoriums, but White Auditorium, what I love about it is it gets so loud. I mean, if you only have 100 people in there, it's going to be loud. But, you know, we were very fortunate, obviously, to have a lot more than that come to watch our games. And, you know, every year I coached at Emporia State, I lost my voice because you have to project so much. And just that whole atmosphere, you know, from having the football team come to games and really, you know, help with that home crowd and that environment and harass, whether it's the officials or the other team, in a great positive way, of course, but I remember my first, one of my first games there, I felt like our fans were always so involved. I mean, they knew basketball. So there was a basketball savvy there, which was really important as well. And then when I got to know the people, you know, we obviously did double headers with the men. So I'd walk around the arena and just try to introduce myself and get to know some of those people, because I was just so appreciative of them coming and being so involved, because I didn't know how much they really knew about our team, but they wanted to. So just, again, it goes back to the people. There were great people there. They opened their hearts to us, and then we were able to win them over a little bit with our style of play.
And that was obviously a very successful style of play. You know, first year kind of feeling it out a little bit, you know, 12, 14, kind of getting used to it. And then go 20-10 in your second year and advance to the NCAA tournament. Talk a little bit about that, just kind of the excitement around the program going into that first NCAA tournament.
Well, a lot of that, again, goes back to the kids, because I remember some of our first workouts. We told our players right then, like, we didn't consider, you know, Division II. It's like, we are going to groom this program along and coach like your Division I players. And that's because that's all I knew. So I don't know what people say, like, you're supposed to do this for Division II or Division I. It's like, I grew up Division I, so that's how we're going to run this program. And our kids really embraced it. So they saw that first year of having success, doing it, you know, playing a little bit more aggressively, a little bit more up tempo, taking care of the ball, taking high percentage shots. I mean, they just grasped almost every single nugget you could tell them coaching, because they wanted to be that good. And I think that's what happened on that second year, is that, you know, obviously you get a little bit more depth in your recruiting, and you just had kids that they wanted to win. They wanted to do whatever it took. And they just embraced it right from the get-go. So we didn't have any blowback from anybody. It was basically everybody was all hands on deck and whatever we needed to do.
And in that first tournament, let's see, refresh my memory here. You may have it, but we go up to the Missouri Western. Is that correct? At the time, Missouri Western was really good program. And then we had to play West Texas in the NCAA tournament. Just talk about that experience going up against one of the, the blue bloods at the time of Division II women's basketball.
Well, it was a great experience, and just the fact that obviously going up against West Texas and Brandon's dad and those whole dynamics as well is and what I loved about Brandon, he could care less who was across on the other bench. It was like we were gonna do whatever we can. But beating Missouri Western was huge, just in the fact that they had they'd been so dominant in our league, and no one ever thought they could beat them. To us, our kids always believed that they could. And it was such a crazy game as well. But I think that we had such a good following as well. It's like even when we started going on the road, we had so many fans, so it always felt like we had that home court advantage. And I think that was really settling to our team as well, because it's like they never felt like they were in an evil environment. They always, it was like, it was like playing at home every game.
All right, and then you get through that year, and then the next year it's just one of the special years you could have. Just talk about that. Starting at going undefeated. Just kind of, was there any feeling going into that year that it would be that special?
We felt like we had a really great nucleus of young ladies coming back, and we felt like, especially in the summer, you saw them working in the summer, and that was before obviously you could do a lot of that stuff. So they were doing a lot of stuff on their own, and they were coming back in shape, which was, that's another thing. A lot of kids go home and they live in the pantry all summer, and they come back, that 10 pounds heavier and a little softer around the middle. And these kids, you could tell they worked out, they lifted, they ran, came back in shape because they didn't want to get through our program. And our conditioning program was pretty hard right from the get-go. And it was like, hey, if we're not in shape, we're going to be in pain. So I think they were inspired by that. But, they just really believed that they could. I think that we saw it then. Well, I didn't, for the life of me, ever think we'd go undefeated. Our league was so good. And we had some really, really close games. Well,
come on now. There were you had no close games during the regular season. Now
I always felt like we had close games, but they just played well. We had a great nucleus, great chemistry. I didn't feel like our kids ever got too cocky or they pretty level-headed. So it was a really, really great group that worked their butts off. We relied on, we had some freshmen come in and be impact, like an Emily Bloss, that did a tremendous job. But we had great leadership by the Koshaites and Shanna Span and, just Amanda Flick. I mean, just a lot of kids having an impact. And go into that national tournament and believing that we could. And, one of the things and I told our team this when they got inducted into the Hall of Fame is that, the thing I remember is the fact that they were so disappointed in that second place. We'd gone undefeated, lost that championship game, and they didn't want to have anything to do with that trophy. And we should have been so proud, right? We're 33-1. Great moment. I mean, but they lost. They pushed that trophy in the shower. Like there wasn't one kid that wanted to take it home, because they were just so disappointed. And I told them that time, there's going to be a time you're going to remember this and you're going to think positively about it. Like this was a great accomplishment, and let's not take this loss and not understand what you've achieved. And that's why I'm so appreciative of Emporia State inducting that team into the Hall of Fame, because, man, they deserved it.
They were. That was special. And the things they did, too, that I remember is just we may talk about it too much, but some ways not enough, the community support around that. And we go into that final game that year of the regular season. And granted, this was also, and I'll ask you about Coach Slay maybe a little bit later, but, that was his last game, too. But just walking into White Auditorium and there's 4,500 people in there and it's just jam packed and, a big time environment and just, what do you think was the key to getting that crowd involvement and that community involvement?
I'll be honest. I think that there's so many pieces of the puzzle, from the president, Kay Schellenkamp, embracing us and being there, to, people, administration throughout the university, to the write-ups every time in the paper. I mean, the Emporia Gazette covered us extremely well. So when you could spread the word, and it wasn't like we were having to compete with the men's program on, the attention, they covered both of us the same, and that was probably the first time. I mean, I've seen that in my career, and probably the only time I still see it is that, they did features on our kids. The community got to know our kids. We did enough things with our team and opened them up to the public to get to know them, that people were able to. We had them go out into the stands after our games and thank the fans. And man, those fans just embraced everything. So having that kind of environment was so special. I remember how hot it was. See, I just remember there's so many people in there. I was sweating to death, but it was just so neat. Our kids were so deserving of it. And I've always said that community is just such a special community because they cared, and they didn't care about, even though we won, winning wasn't the key, is that they liked our kids. We had really intelligent young ladies that have been very successful in things they've done since then. Just a special group of people and our kids cared about them. So it was more of friends supporting friends versus, it was just a team and we're a fan.
Yeah. And then, obviously get in through that and are able to host the MIAA tournament and, get 3,000 fans in there every time, and just a tremendous environment for that, win the MIAA tournament. And then what I will always remember of that was this was one of the first times that you could get the Division II selection show. And I think we were in a room in Visser Hall, and when they announced that Emporia State was going to get it, just the excitement that was in that room for us to host the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, and the people that put that in place as well, and that's where, we had J.D. Campbell as our sports information, who did so much for us as well. Greg Ray, who we talked about. I mean, the Souter family, helping make a lot of things that we needed to do, because you needed a financial, commitment to make some of that stuff happen. Those people coming together and making it a really special moment. Those are things that you expect from a first class program, and it was. They made it happen. And Emporia State, to me, has always been that kind of program that, they wanted to always do things the right way, regardless of gender.
And I think that's kind of really telling now with some of the stuff that we saw this year with the, discrepancies between the setups at the Division I men's and women's tournament. And just, I felt that we really tried to put on something here, and it didn't matter whether you were playing men's basketball or women's basketball. We were going to put on the best basketball tournament. And again, that's partly because you made people feel it was important, and that's really a testament to you. You may not say it, but I'll say it for you.
Well, I appreciate that, but it goes back to me. That wasn't when I was at Emporia. That wasn't a job. I mean, it was. I loved every moment of it. I felt like it was family all the time. Whether it's going to coaches for lunch every day or it's just family. It's like you were just sitting and having a meal with family all the time. And I still say some of the best tacos I got were in Emporia. And, it's just, those are some of the things that when you take away, I keep going back to the people. The people are going to always make a place. And some people do things as a stepping stone. I never really thought it was going to be a stepping stone for me because I loved it that much. And it ended up to be. But at the same time, you've got to look at the things that they had in place, and that was that people wanted, the community people wanted to make sure that it stayed a community, if that makes sense. And we had everybody from, the Chamber of Commerce to, business owners, to everybody getting involved and putting in marketing up on their, their boards. And there's all the pieces of the puzzle were there that made it such a great place.
Well, and you obviously laid the groundwork for what's been an incredible run, as I said before. since you've left. I mean, the amazing thing is you did what you did here, but it's not even in this century, not to make you feel old or anything. And you look what we've done this century as far as the number of wins for the NCAA tournament. Again, I feel that's all a testament to you. I mean, you went 65-25. That's a pretty darn good record over 3 years here. So really appreciate that. Is there anything, and let's talk a little bit back, let's talk about Slay a little bit, if you don't mind. You were just starting your career as he was ending his collegiate coaching career. Now he's still coaching, and
right, of course he is.
Yeah. So, but just talk a little bit about your relationship with Slay.
Slay was awesome, and the thing that I loved about Slay was, you never had to fight him on anything. I mean, in practice times on the court or anything like that. He was like, hey, let's just be fair and equal and whatever. He was probably our most avid fan as well. And me for him, because, I learned so much from him as well, just watching how he handled his guys to, things they did in practice. And he was just such a great communicator as well. We never had an argument. This is when we had to travel together and all those kind of stuff. I mean, we just always talked about anything if we had a difference, and we worked it out. And just his professionalism to his he loved Emporia State. I mean, and, that's what I learned a lot from him is like, man, he just loved it. And I obviously got to figure out how and why. And I loved it just as much. But he supported our program so much that without having somebody that was fighting you along the way, because in some places, and I've been to places where, man, you just, you fought the men's coach all the time because they didn't care about your program. They just wanted things for theirs. Slay was never like that. I don't think he has that in him anyway. He's so giving of himself, his time, his money, everything that, there's not enough Slay makers in the world. I can tell you that.
All right. Well, hey, I'm going to kind of bring it here to a close a little bit, but I just want to talk about, you coach at Southern Illinois now. Talk about the Valley's a pretty darn good league, but talk about coaching during a pandemic.
Yeah, it was crazy. I'll be honest, this was the toughest year I've ever had in coaching. We only had 4 players make it to every single game because of all the COVID protocols and, quarantines and isolations. And we had a really good team. So, from that point, it was really disappointing. But I said from day one during the pandemic is that our players' health and mental well-being was going to be the most important thing that we concentrated on versus winning and losing. Because, we don't know how bad this thing could be, right? Especially in the beginning. So we needed to make sure that we were taking care of these kids and not taking any risk and all of that. But it was very hard, and very hard on these kids. I mean, they talked about it all through this NCAA tournament on how hard the things that these kids have had to sacrifice. Our kids didn't go home for Thanksgiving. They didn't go home for Christmas. They had to stay away from their families. They had to wave to them from the crowd. I mean, it's, that sacrifice because, you became a lot more of a family, but at the same time it was, masked and 6 feet apart. And the only good thing I said about the whole pandemic is me wearing a mask during our games kept me from a lot of technicals.
All right. Well, Cindy, hey, anything special you'd like to say, or any great memories you have specifically about your time here? Or?
It's so hard because I have so many great memories from like the first day I drove up in my Honda Accord to being the only car in the Walmart parking lot. Everything else was a truck. To just the support that we had throughout, and the different kids we had, from Shanna Spann and her rubber bands around her wrist and writing, championship on them, to, Elizabeth Rulon, who I think is a great player and probably could have been a lot more, getting hurt by a water tank falling on her leg during a West Texas game to hurt her career, to Emily Bloss taking forever to get urine tested, NCAA drug tested after the Final Four, and us waiting forever for her to get out of there. to just the celebrations, the great staff I had, from our GAs to, the assistant coach with Brandon, and just, not enough thanks can go out to every single person. I mean, I loved Emporia, still do. Still stay in touch with the Jenkins family, and who are very dear to my heart, and just a lot of good people. So I'm sure that a lot of them are still there, and I just appreciate every moment.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We'll make sure, you told me when we were setting this up that all your Lady Hornet gear had been kind of worn thin. We'll have to get you some new gear here from Emporia.
Yeah, this is the only thing that lasted. So, but I do appreciate everything that Emporia did for me. And that's my biggest thanks, is Emporia did so much for me in my career. And I can't thank everybody enough.
All right.
Well, now that we've come to the end of this segment, we'll be jumping into our audience Q&A segment. So if you have any questions for Coach Stein, you can submit those at emporia.edu/live. Well, we're here now for our Q&A segment. So if you have questions for Coach Stein, you can submit those at emporia.edu/live. And actually, while we give people a minute to do that, I have a question. We didn't really get to talk about this during the previous segment, since we were focusing mostly on your coaching career, but I know that you've also done some commentary on TV and radio in the past. I was wondering if you could talk some about how you got into that and your experiences with that.
Wow, great question. When I left Mizzou, I wanted to stay involved, obviously, in sports, and moved to Kansas City and started off at UMKC. I knew the coaches there. They asked me if I would do radio, be the color on their radio. So I started doing that. And I knew coaches all along the Missouri Valley Conference, from Northern Iowa to Bradley to Illinois State, to Wichita State. And those coaches asked me to do their TV games. So I started doing TV games, and then Metro Sports out of Kansas City asked me to do some high school boys games. Fox Sports Midwest asked me to do some Big 12 games. So I started doing all of those. So actually, I absolutely loved it. And it's funny because I tell people all the time, they're like, oh, that must just be a great job. And that job is just as competitive as coaching, because, everybody wants to be a color commentator or do the play-by-play, and there's a lot of competition to do that. So it was really interesting to get involved in that, because here I am, I'm just trying to do a good job and show up, and people are after your job. It was extremely competitive, a little stressful. I mean, you've got to say the right thing, and some, you don't want to have any side remarks that you think is funny and nobody else does. So, and you don't want to be the only one laughing at your own jokes, which happens a lot with me. So, but it was fun. It was a great experience, and I really enjoyed it. But honestly, I got most of those gigs because I knew the coaches and they wanted me to do their games.
So I guess another kind of follow-up question is, how would you say that your experience in coaching kind of fed into that, like the kind of perspective that it gave you, would you say?
Well, I think the perspective, especially when you're doing the color part of the color analyst, is the fact that you get to watch what the coaches, what kind of decisions they're making. So you're able to see what they're doing. You know what the other team's supposed to be doing. You've watched practices in many cases. And I think you can share that with the viewers. There's so many times that the viewers don't understand that, they say they ran a sideline out of bounds play and they have no idea that the play was actually supposed to be on the other side of the floor because that's how it was practiced. I mean, and that's something that you can add. It's just, bits and pieces of information. Well, how did that happen? Was it the way the defense played? I mean, there's so much other things that you can explain to the viewer. And I enjoyed that part. I mean, teaching is a huge part of, how I like to coach. So I felt like it was just kind of the same thing. You're teaching the viewers now kind of what to see and what to look for.
Interesting.
Great question, Rebecca.
So we have another question. Sherry asks if you have any advice for people who are interested in coaching at the college level.
Absolutely. And I would tell you that it always helps if you've played some, because obviously you have a different insight. But even if you didn't, it is, trying to go work camps, go, talk to different coaches that you respect and you idolize, and ask them to be your mentor. Try to get involved with that. Volunteer to help teams out if you can't get a paying job. I mean, there's, different ways of doing that, but there's not enough good coaches. I mean, there's always a need for coaches in every aspect, especially in youth. The youth, I'd get involved with that as much as you can, because kids have to be taught the fundamentals correctly. We got away from it a little bit. Grade schools, middle schools, high schools, everybody needs coaches. So I try to get involved there as well. And again, if you can't find something paying wise, volunteer, and the volunteer will definitely guarantee you almost that you're going to get something from that. Because if you show a great passion for what you do, people want positive people around them, and they want people that are going to be passionate about, the game, whatever sport it is.
Absolutely. So that is all the questions we have for right now. So I guess we'll give everyone another minute or two to see if they find their way to that form. So I guess while we're waiting, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us that we didn't discuss earlier, or anything else you'd like to talk about?
Well, no, I would just tell you that, especially Emporia State has so many avenues in which to help people. And one of the reasons why I absolutely loved Emporia State is the fact that the people there cared. I mean, it was from the janitors cleaning your office to the secretary down the hallway to all the way up to the president of the university. Everybody cared about everything that was going on. There's great teachers there. They'll give a lot of time. So whatever you want to do, you're able to do it. You just got to ask questions, and you've got to go get her. You're in charge of your own destiny. So you've got to go find what you want and what you want to do. And then you make it happen, and you make it happen by, asking people, volunteering, being willing to do the extra stuff. That's how everybody gets where they are now. You gotta kind of forge your own path sometimes, and just ask questions. If you don't know, you just ask questions. It's like there's never a dumb question. We say that all the time. I mean, it's if you don't know, you don't know, and someone trying to say they know everything is usually wrong all the time. So ask questions, be involved. There's a lot of really good people around, and whatever it is, whatever you want to do, you can do it. But I go back to, be positive, care about people, show you care about people, smile at them every day, and, give it your best shot every day. And you approach your day with enthusiasm, and a lot of things come your way.
I will definitely second that. So thank you for giving us that great advertisement for ESU. And we now have a new question that was just submitted. from Callie, who asked, when/how did you know you wanted to be a coach?
Well, I think that, it goes way back. I mean, I knew probably in fourth grade I wanted to coach. And people tease me now because in sixth grade, the coach that we had just coached because they couldn't find anybody else. So I was basically telling everybody what to do all the time. And it's probably never stopped since fourth grade. I've been telling people what to do since fourth grade. But I just always knew it. I just enjoyed working with people. I always tell everybody there's a lot of people, smart people out there in math and engineering and all that. And I'm not one of those. Like I've always loved sports. I always wanted to be around sports. I love people. I've enjoyed being around people. And so I just knew I wanted to coach and try to, I like winning. So, I'm very competitive. So it just kind of all came together. I love the sport of basketball. And I played a lot of sports. Now, I wish they would have had soccer and some of those things when I was younger, that I didn't have an opportunity. But I think that, it's just something you kind of just have an itch for, I think, because to do what coaches have to do and put up with parents and some of those things, you better love it because you'll get tested for sure.
Yeah, and we have another question rolling in now from Dylan, who asks, how do you go about recruiting the correct players, developing your players into the program that you have, and continuing a successful program?
Well, recruiting is definitely a key. And everyone has a certain style of play, a certain style defensively or offensively that they want. I think the thing that I always look for first is how hard do they work? Because especially in college, if they don't work hard, they won't last. If they don't love the game, they're not going to last. I mean, it's just too hard. You sacrifice too much. So, I really look for work ethic. I obviously look for talent and skill. I like good shooters. I like kids that can score. I feel like I can teach them defense. And even if they're a bad defensive player, they can outscore whoever's guarding them. I think it's a win-win. So, I think that that's some of the stuff that you look for is those kind of players. I like athletic kids. I like kids that are going to dive on the floor for the loose ball. I like kids that care about each other and support one another out there. So we really try to teach that kind of culture. You want to make sure your teams have a great experience as well. Win, lose, or draw, you want them to enjoy the journey. And that's what we try to get accomplished.
Absolutely. So you've got to kind of look for those personal and interpersonal characteristics as well as just technical skills.
Absolutely. That's always, skill level is really good. If you can get athleticism and skill level, that's a no-brainer. And once in a while you can get somebody that's super skilled, but they're a little lazy, but you got to put a lot of hustlers around them. So you can take one of those once in a while, but you better get, the hard workers, the blue collar kids around them.
Yeah. So those are all the questions that we have so far. So unless we have anything coming in the next minute or so here, we may go ahead and wrap it up.
Okay.
Oh, no, we've got another one. They're still rolling in. And this one actually comes from the current Lady Hornet basketball coach, Toby Wynn. And he wants to know, what is your favorite memory from playing in White Auditorium?
Well, hello, Toby. Toby's a great coach. You guys are lucky to have him. He's a tremendous coach. So, White Auditorium, I think that I've got so many memories there. It's so hard to just pick one. I remember some of our heated battles with Missouri Western. I remember some bad calls and the crowd changing the way things were being called because we had such a great and loud crowd. I remember our football team being in the first 4 rows on the bleachers opposite the opposing team and making it very, very hard on them. And it was very, very loud in there. I mean, I just remember so many things about that place. Ed Rathke, who ran White Auditorium. I remember the ramps and making our kids run the ramps to stay in shape. So I remember lots of things about White Auditorium, but it's a great place because, man, you get that place just rocking. You can feel it. People clapping, you could feel it in your chest. I mean, it just, it is an incredible atmosphere and I really miss it. I don't miss losing my voice there, but I do miss the White Auditorium and all the people that filled it. People dressed like Hornets. People would dress up in Hornet costumes. I mean, it was crazy, but it was a lot of fun.
That's intriguing because I've not actually seen anyone dressed in a Hornet costume. Let's see. So again, so far, that's all the questions that we've received. So while we wait for a second to see if there are any more, I do want to let everyone know and invite everyone to come see our latest exhibit in Special Collections and Archives, which is focused on ESU athletics and kind of looking at some of the people who have helped to build the program over the years. So that's in William Allen White Library. We're down on the first floor. And if you have an ESU ID, you can come into the building that way. But if you don't, you can just give us a call at 620-341-6431, and we'll let you in so you can see our exhibit. And I'm not seeing any more. Oh, nope. We've got one more question again. And this question is a little more on the technical side, I guess. What advice do you have for a player going through an ACL injury?
Well, ACLs are tough. And that's probably the one injury that a lot of people are probably more scared of, but it isn't anything to be scared of. I've had several players tear ACLs. It's rehab. I mean, you can't rush your rehab. You got to get that inflammation down. You've got to listen to the doctors and your physical therapist and do all of those things and do it in a row, but you can come back just as strong. But it does take a while. The ACL injury is something I would tell someone never to rush back. Don't say, well, I'm going to get back in 4 months. Your body will tell you when you can get back. But that is something that you can definitely come back from and be just as good. I mean, I've said this before. I've had kids do that and come back and be just as good, if not better. So, but it does take a lot of hard work. And you've got to pay attention to your physical therapy. And that's going to be the key for any kind of recovery is your PT and putting the time in to keep that knee and leg strong.
Well, I'm admittedly not an athlete, but that sounds like good advice to me.
Well, they got to stay positive. A lot of kids get really down when that happens because they get a little isolated. They're used to being very active and they get isolated and don't allow yourself to be isolated. Your friends are going out, you go out with them and just you be careful with it. And like I said, but don't get down. Don't let yourself get down. Keep your spirits up. And if your spirits get down, you talk to somebody about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So looking again at our question form, I keep saying that we don't have any more questions, but it looks like this might be our final one for real, possibly. So in that case, I do want to thank you again for taking the time to do this with us.
Well, no problem. Rebecca, I really appreciate you guys thinking of me, and Emporia State means a lot to me, and just a place that's has a huge part of my heart. So I just appreciate you guys even thinking of me.
Oh, definitely. Well, and we want to thank everyone also who's been in the audience and been asking these great questions, and hope that you'll keep up with Special Collections and Archives and join us for programs in the future.